Keep the music going. We try to keep the energy up. It's been a long day. It's our final workshop before amazing Mitch Kapoor and our keynote coming up next. Seen some amazing sessions today, so I will try. The bar is very, very high, but I think we're gonna have some fun today. And yeah, like I said, we'll just get right into it. If you can, please join me in this slide deck. I see a number of us are here. This is going to be an interactive slide deck where I've got some links, and I'm sure McKinley can help out, and myself just adding some links to the chat too if you don't want to follow along and just prefer to follow on screen. My name is Sean Glantz. I teach computer science. I teach a CTE pathway here in Davis, California, Northern California, about an hour and a half east of San Francisco. Like all of us educators, right? I wear a lot of hats, but this is my fourth year teaching CS, and I started as a middle school science teacher. And I think I heard Quincy Larson talking earlier about that beginner's mindset. So I really feel like that's been an advantage for me coming in as a teacher, right? Like learning alongside my students, figuring out, getting stuck, seeing where those pain points are going to be. And I've had a lot of fun just learning as I go, and been using Replit the last few years in a lot of my classes, both as like kind of the core hub that I've been teaching with, and also, as an add-on or an extension resource for some of the other courses that I teach. Here's a quick look at our agenda. We're going to do a really, really brief look at Agile project management. The two highlighted segments are where you're actually going to be coding, right? So I'm going to share some links. We're going to do a little bit of an icebreaker. You're going to be working in teams. So we'll do that HTML icebreaker first. We'll talk about Kanban, what that is, how that fits into Agile project management, how you might use it with your students, and also how we're going to use it for our escape room. We'll have about 10 minutes to engage in the escape room. It should be a lot of fun. There's no way you're going to finish it. I really designed this escape room to be something that you can use in your classes for like an hour class block with students who maybe have some coding experience, maybe not. But as we'll see, you'll be able to get into it, and we'll just get a taste. And then we'll hopefully have some time for Q&A, but no promises there because I tend to go over, unfortunately. But I will try to get us done so we have a few times for questions. If you do have questions, though, please just drop them in the chat, and I'll try to get to them, and McKinley will help me out with that. It does sound like a challenge. You are right. And maybe you have an advantage because you've probably seen them all. All right, so first question in the chat, if you can, how agile are you? And if this joke makes no sense to you, you are probably a 1. But if you are familiar with a little bit of the terminology here, you can go ahead and rate yourself 5 being up high. If you've heard this joke before, because maybe you've attended one of my previous sessions, you're at least a 2. I have presented on Agile for a number of years at Computer Science Teacher Association events and some other types of workshops around. This is going to be an abbreviated version of the Agile, so we can really spend our time in the Replit. Okay, so as we know, right, in the classroom, in general, in the world, teamwork is important, right? So how do we get our students to collaborate effectively, efficiently? What kind of frameworks can we use? I teach at a small school. We're a public charter school in Davis, California, and we're a project-based learning school. Like all of our classes really emphasize PBL. So we get a lot of professional development around that. We work closely with the Buck Institute for Education, and they have this gold standard PBL. We call it the Danish. I don't know, that's what I refer to it as because it kind of looks like a Danish. But one of the things that we focus on is authenticity, right? How can we make our projects more authentic to students, right? And that can be like the end product, solving some real world problems. But that's also really hard to do. That's a high level, a high bar. Another way of thinking about authenticity is, are you getting your students to use tools and structures that are authentic to the industry? And so it got me thinking, what do real teams use to manage large, complex projects, particularly projects where the goalpost might be moving, right? So that's what led me to start learning about Agile. So Agile, again, high-level overview. It can be kind of thought of in contrast to probably what we're more useful. A lot of times we'll call that waterfall, but really this is like a task list type of a thing, right? We've got phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of a problem. And there's a lot of times when that's super useful, but it does have some trade-offs, right? Some drawbacks. One big one is bottlenecks. You might not be able to move on to phase 2, even though you've got a couple other people ready to go and waiting. They've finished their tasks, but you're waiting for that slowest processor, right? If we want to think about this like sequential and parallel programming, what is the process that is taking the longest? So Agile was introduced, and you can kind of think of Agile. There's capital A Agile and lowercase a, right? I very much live in the lowercase world. It's a framework. There are some guiding principles. It's really about how do we keep our team moving efficiently, and how can we collaborate on a task, in which case, again, those goalposts are moving. And that's probably because of user, you're listening to your user, and their needs might be changing, or maybe how you understand what their needs are evolving. And so how can you keep your team moving efficiently and effectively while the goal might be shifting a little bit? Within this framework, there's a great history for Agile, and I'll share a ton of resources if you want to go down the rabbit hole, as I have. But from there are some more structured frameworks. Two of these frameworks are what are called Kanban and Scrum. Those are the two that I find most useful in my classroom, right? Because we're teachers, we're educators. I'll take things that work for my students, and I'll leave the rest. And so today we're just going to be really talking about Kanban, because we've only got 20 more minutes. And so Kanban, we can really think of as this dynamic to-do list. Scrum gets into protocols and team roles. Again, I'll share a lot of those resources with you if it interests you and you want to dive deeper. All right, so here we go. Here's a bunch of resources. If you're in the slide deck, you can click on these. There's a fantastic training offered by the Scrum Alliance, which is Agile Leadership in K-12 education. There's an educator's guide. Agile Coach is more industry focused, but I find it really helpful to use with my students. So please feel free to check out any of these resources. I also have this Wakelet that has just a bunch of curated resources that I've been collecting over the years. I've also linked in there recordings from some of the past sessions that I've done on Agile, which you can check out if you'd like. But that's me talking. Time for us to do a little bit of coding. Okay, so we have a Replit team you all are going to join. And if you've got some experience, great. If you're brand new, I think it's going to be fine as well. Let me drop this link into the chat for you all. What I'm going to have you do right now is join a team, and you're going to start. The first project that you should see on there is called a team builder. So this is going to bring you to the escape room is set up as a set of exercises or projects that you're going to be working through to escape our escape room, right? This set of puzzles. So right now I'm seeing some people joining. I know that I've got about 19 people in the room. And what I'm going to ask you to do is come down to this team builder, and you should see a start project. And then once you get there, it's going to be like waiting for you to get assigned into a team, right? So I'm going to give just a minute for everybody to do that. And while you're getting logged in, we'll try to multitask here, and let me know if I'm, losing people. The way this is going to work is we've got an HTML, right? We've got a website that we're going to be creating. And there's instructions. There should be instructions in the comments that are easy enough to follow along. You can also, if you go down to the lesson, because we're in Teams, you'll be able to see some instructions on what this is asking you to do. And I'm only going to give you about 5 minutes, so it's okay if you don't, get a ton in there. But what we want you to do is introduce yourself, right? And you'll let the people on your team know who you are, where you work, what's your role. A little something about yourself, right? What's your teaching superpower? We've all got one. We all join the same team. Oh, no. Hey, you know what? Okay, let's see. All right, this was my one hang up was the team creating. I wanted to auto assign. Oh, let's see. I'm just going to kick you all out. All right, we're going to do teams of 5. I'm going to auto assign. All right. So now we have 3 teams, right? We've got 2 teams of 5 and a team of 4. And that should be ready to go. Let's have you just jump right in. We're saved. We're updated. Okay, cool. That was the one hang up where I was like, I haven't actually got to test this with like that many people. So I think we're all good to go. Hopefully you're all in there now and you can start working on this, this website, right? And you'll see it's introducing, if you're not familiar with HTML, it is introducing these div tags, D-I-V. But the first thing you'll want to do is, once you're in your team, start thinking about a team mascot. And in order to collaborate, one of the tools we have here in Replit Teams is the chat. So go ahead and open up the chat and just throw out an idea, right? You can say, hey, what do you got? What are you thinking about? Hey, I see in this one we've got people saying hello. That's great. That's great. We're talking. See if you can come up with a mascot that everybody gets excited about, right? All right. I see that I only had this template set up for teams of 4. So Ms. Bolin has already added a 5th profile card. Thank you for doing that. Super great. Once you've come up with this team mascot, you're going to add that in right here, right, where it says team mascot. And I do want to point out one more thing, actually, before we get too deep into this. You might be having trouble seeing this in WebView. This is like a new bug that just popped up when I was looking at this yesterday. I mean, Replit's always building and doing great things, and bugs happen. So I'm sure they'll get it resolved soon. However, an easy thing that you can do is if you just open this in a new tab, it does load just fine, right? And so this is what you'll expect to see. You're each going to be plugging in your own information. If you've got time to add a picture, that's great. If not, don't worry about the picture. In fact, I'm going to say, don't worry about the picture. Go ahead and put your information in there. Answer those icebreaker questions if you can, and then we'll regroup in about, we'll say 3 minutes. 3 minutes, all right? And I'm going to play a little bit of music as we're all getting to know each other. All right. Maybe you have finished up that web page. Maybe not. Probably not. Again, we're short on time. That's all right. I want to make sure that we've got a little bit of everything, right? But here we've gotten this idea, right? You can see this doing this to the students, answering some icebreaker questions, just a little bit of a connector, getting to know you, but also, right, a nice opportunity to learn how to use the Replit chat feature. And potentially maybe you started even commenting in thread. That could be really helpful if people are getting stuck, right? And maybe you've got some people on your team that are a little bit more confident and experienced. Okay. Like I said, if you got questions, drop them in the chat. I'm going to skip this video, but I do want to talk just briefly about Kanban. And I like to show these videos. They're almost a little bit cringy because they're just like, these like professional training videos, which aren't the most fun. But in fact, it's like it's a good cringe. I've got the high school students, right? And it's not like an educational video that they're so used to. It's a professional training video. Anyway, they introduced Kanban, and the simplest way that I can describe it, or you can think about it, is it's taking a to-do list that we're all used to, right? Which is just a checklist. And it's moving it into this at least 3-column chart where now you take a task from the to-do list, you put it in the doing column. Now you've got this nice visual indicator that this is in progress, right? I don't really have that information in a regular to-do list. So knowing that something is in progress is really helpful when you're collaborating, especially if it's asynchronously and things like that. And then, is it done? When it gets finished, you put it in the done column. Just that little tiny shift can be a really powerful change. There's tons of different ways of using Kanban boards, right? Obviously, a whiteboard with sticky notes is fantastic. You can use a manila folder if you want to like have those physical boards and just draw them out. And that way you can fold them up, put them away, pull them back out the next time you see your students. But there are professional tools for this as well. One that I use is Trello, right? There's other ones, Asana, Basecamp, Jira, Airtable. They all do the same thing. Well, they'll probably have advantages and disadvantages. I've been using Trello for years. It's free, which is why I like to use it. And it really does give you some extra features that for a larger project, totally worth it. I might actually be a little bit too excited, right? Whenever I start a new team project, I'm very much like, hey guys, we got to get on board with this. Again, in those resources, I've done a lot of presentations where I have more like an hour and a half, and I'll do this escape room type of an activity using Trello to both introduce the tools of Trello. But we're focused on Replit today. So let's dive into it. And we're just going to use a Google Slides version of a Kanban board today because we all know how to use Google Slides. This escape room is featuring 4 introductory curricula that you can find on the Curriculum Hub today. We've got the Intro to HTML, CSS, Intro to Python, Building a Video Game with Kaboom, and then in our expert level, I took David's, one of the exercises from David's Python for GCSE and popped that in there as well. So these are fantastic curriculum. I've used all of them in my class just this past year. They're wonderful, and I can't wait to see what more curriculum we get to add on, especially after this week's curriculum jam. So here we go, into the escape room. You now hopefully know who's on your team, right? And that's going to be important. I'm going to ask that everybody joins this slide deck. Links in the chat. You could also access it from our interactive slide deck if you're on slide 16. And what we've got here is, I didn't know how many people we have, so I made a whole bunch of slides, but that's just copy and paste, so it's easy. You're going to add your Replit username. So this way your team, and just go ahead, if you're the first, go ahead and put your Replit username or your name so that your teammates know, hey, this is going to be our Kanban board, right? We've got 3 teams, I believe, that are working right now. You'll put your name there. We have already finished the team builder. So we're going to pop that over into the done column so everybody can see that this project is done. The next thing that you'll do is go ahead and open up a project. For example, maybe somebody wants to try to tackle the HTML, CSS beginner exercise. You can add your name to this card and drag it on over to the doing column so everybody on your team knows that this is being worked on. Get in there, start coding. If you want to join in on a card that somebody else is working on, you can do that, right? Now you should be able to select any of the teams once you are in your Replit team or in the Replit project. You'll be able to join one of the projects if you see one of your teammates has already started it. If there's any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. I want to give you, we're not going to have 10 minutes like I hoped for. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Like I said, we'll see if we can get some of these done. And I'm going to hop back over into Replit so I can see who's doing what. And of course, I'll put on some escape room music. Because of time, I'm going to ask us to bring it all back if we can. This is there for you. I just want to make sure we've got the last 2 or 3 minutes to wrap up. If you've got any questions, please drop them in the chat right now. I forgot to go to the instructions, the escape room instructions. That might have been helpful. I kind of talked you through it and I saw people dive in. But hopefully you were able to communicate using the chat and threads, clicking that submit button in the top right corner and moving the card to the done column. And of course you can mention either me, the teacher, or put questions in the chat or on the Trello board as you were doing. So did you escape? I don't think anybody made it out. I did not give you nearly enough time, but hopefully you can see that this might be something fun to use with your students to introduce Agile, but also to give them a taste of like the different types of things they might choose to study, your pathways, right? Or maybe you're going to cover a couple things in your course. Maybe you've got some options for extensions. Maybe you just want to give the students this so they can choose, what path they want to take. Do they want to get into web development, game design, doing a little more number crunching with Python? I want to make sure that these resources are nice and clear for you all. And this one I'll drop in. Well, you've got access to the slide deck, but this right here is essentially, it's the project, right? So you can copy this. Please, I'd encourage you to fork it, change it, add your own puzzles, share it back with me. I'd love to see this evolving as we go, in the real Replit ethos. And I'm always available on Twitter or by email. Reach out and have some fun with it. McKinley just dropped in the code there for this session, and I'm glad y'all had a good time. Excited to head on over to Mitch Kapoor on the main stage. We'll see you there shortly. And thanks for all that you do, educating our kids, CS Education. Y'all rock.